Hi everyone, welcome to my second tutorial. This one is going to be about onion skinning in the OpenToonz program. I've been seeing a lot of people having trouble with this, so I thought I'd go ahead and make a quick tutorial on the different features I've been able to figure out and how they all work in both a raster and a vector layer. As far as I can tell, they work pretty much the same in both layers. So we're going to go ahead and load the scene. Go to Ink and Paint. We got little candy corn man here. This is on a raster level because that's what I normally work in. I just did a little bit of him freaking out and then passing out. I like to imagine that there's kids chomping on candy corn on Halloween in the corner there, which is what he's freaking out about. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to come over here we're going to make sure we're on our stage. We're going to right click and click Activate Onion Skin. For this, it seems to just basically show you every drawing behind the one you're currently on. It's black, it's clunky, hard to tell which drawing's which, not very functional, I don't like it. So this is something that if someone were to activate it and then see it, they'd think, oh my gosh, the onion skin sucks. Well, let's fix that, because we're going to deactivate that onion skin. That's not the one we want. We want to go to Preferences, go to the Onion Skin tab, and we're going to click Onion Skin On. This is going to give us way more features than that one just did. So as you can see, currently it's just doing the same thing as what we had before. We're going to click over here and you get this red semicircle and these dots here. That is the control of what you can see in your onion skin. You can drag it out and you can see more frames. You can drag it out, you can see frames ahead, which is something you couldn't do with the other one. You can click off frames in the middle if you only want to see the outer edges of your red. And if you want to extend it out so that you always see 2 frames ahead, then no matter where you click, it's showing you 2 frames ahead. Now, if you want to only see a specific frame and keep that frame visible without having to worry about where you move, you see this is the one that extends it. This is the one that will toggle a fixed onion skin, as you see there. That means no matter where you are, that frame is visible. Very useful, especially when you're doing tracing work or working with cleanup. So we're going to turn that off now. Got all that features explained. We're going to come up here to Customize and Preferences. Now what are all these other things? Well, I'm going to talk about this one, which is perhaps the most useful I've found. It's the colors. So I'm just using the sliders here, but if you double click on this, it'll give you your style editor, which is a little easier to control. I'm just using the sliders to pick a random color here. Let's go ahead and make it a green, and then this one will make it just a dark red. I'm not sure why moving that one moved both, but now I've got green and red. What this has done is previous frames are going to show up in green, following frames are going to show up in red, and we'll just show you what that looks like here. Extend this out, red frames. So any frame ahead of what you're currently on is going to show up in red. Extend this back, green! So this makes it a lot easier to differentiate between the frames behind your current frames and the frames ahead of. This is especially important when you're doing in-betweening in such a way that you want to ease into something, because then you can tell if you have to kind of emphasize towards one frame or the other, you know which one's ahead and which one's behind. I've had that issue sometimes where I draw closer to the frame that's not the one I wanted, and I had to do a whole new in-between for it. So this helps with that. It's actually a feature that's very common in animation programs, especially for that reason. And as you can see, when you pull it out, it works the same way as if your colors were all black, all nice and set up. You can do the fixed frame with it and just play with it. So now that we've got colors figured out, a nice feature. What about this paper thickness? The paper thickness is exactly how it sounds. How much of the paper is obscuring what's behind? So, if you don't know the word, opacity is what we'd use here. It's how see-through your paper is. Right now, your paper thickness is set at 50, so you're seeing 50% of the current drawing, and then the rest of it is see-through so that you can see behind. When you do the frames forward, it still counts as behind, so you're still seeing through a certain thickness of paper. If you go ahead and X this, as you can see, if we click our last drawing and then we extend this all the way out, the further back you get, the lighter the drawing. If you click off these ones in between, you can see you've got this here, and if you click one on, that one becomes slightly lighter. Say you click another one on, the back one again has become a slightly lighter. It's because it's having to see through more pieces of paper that are set at that 50% thickness. Eventually you'll get to the point where you've got so many pieces of paper turned on that no light's getting through and you cannot see the back piece of paper. So we're going to turn this off, and we're just going to real quick show you what happens if you change that, because that is editable. Let's say we want our papers to have a 90% opacity. We want to see 90% of the piece of paper. Then we click on this. It's much lighter than it was before. Click another one. You can barely see it because it's having to show through two pieces of paper. Each of them are 90% a piece. So this one's showing up, this one is showing up as 10%. The one behind it is probably showing up as something like half a 10%. I don't know, it's math stuff there. As you go, it's going to get smaller and smaller a number until you just can't see anything. I believe the default is 50, and I tend to either leave it at 50 or occasionally I'll bump it up to 70 or 80 if I want a little more control over the difference in opacity between my layers. Finally, the last of the preferences for this window, we've got display lines only. If you toggle this one on, display lines only, what it basically does is anything drawn with your brush tool or anything that it deems a line is going to show up. Anything filled is going to disappear when you get into onion skin. So let's go ahead and show you what that looks like. Notice I'm only seeing the brush frame. The fill tool disappears. This is both in raster or a vector level. If we go ahead and insert a thing here, you're only seeing the lines of the candy corn, even though it's got a full fill. If you turn that off, turn display lines only off, you'll see that the drawing is slightly shaded over with whatever color that you chose as your onion skin color, but you can still see the colors showing through. So the reason for turning that on would be if you're in betweening a scene that you've already colored and you're having to figure out where all the lines are. This just makes it easier to see, easier to distinguish between frames, easier to work with. So we're gonna come over here, and now I'm gonna show you the last thing I'm going to show you is not in the preferences. That's it for the preferences. If you right click, you've got the deactivate onion skin, which just turns off onion skin and is not very interesting. But you've got the one below it which says extend onion skin to scene. And what that's going to do is for this, you can see when you're right here, even with a deactivated onion skin, you can see this frame because it's on the same frame. This is the frame you're looking at. But when you activate onion skin and you can either limit onion skin to level or extend to scene, this means that when you come over here and say you extend the onion skin back so that you can see one frame behind, now there's an onion skin for this level. Anything on the level behind is going to show up no matter which column it's in. If you limit onion skin to level, you're only going to see this column. So that's just how it works. That's everything, I believe. I know there is an onion skin button in here. I haven't been able to figure out what that does. So if someone knows what that does, feel free to comment in the section below. I'd love to hear that so I could maybe make a supplemental video, or I can just kind of put that up in the description so that we can add that to the tutorial. Thank you for listening. I am hoping that this was a helpful tutorial and that you learned a bunch. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment and subscribe.